Here we go. Oh, it's a beauty. Welcome everybody to my kitchen. Welcome you out there. I hope you're all well. And today I'm going to talk about one of our favorite foods, which is the avocado. And what a great food it is. And interestingly, it is the most photographed and the most Instagrammed food on the internet. So if you hashtag avocado on Instagram, you'll get over 10 million results. Amazing. On toast, in salads, and with eggs on top, and all kinds of things. And they've really come back into flavor. In the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s, people were worried about their fat content, and they were going, oh no, they're very highly calorific, and so we're not going to eat them because we're in this phase of being anti-fat, because apparently fat causes fat. But since we've been enlightened and we know that fat is actually very good for us, the avocado has come back. And we're going to talk about several things in this nutritional nugget. We're going to talk about the history of the avocado. We're going to talk about the history of its name, where it came from. And we're going to talk about its nutritional value, its eco footprint, and various things about picking the correct avocado and how to prepare them. So with no further ado, let's get into it. So very briefly, we're going to talk about the origin of the name of the avocado, and we go back about 5,000 years to the Aztecs, who called it the ahuacatl, and that means, in Aztec language, testicle. And I don't know, maybe they had a point, maybe not. So yes, the Aztecs called that for many years, and then in about the 16th century, the Spanish colonizers through South and Central America came across the avocado, and they called it aguacate. And I apologize for my pronunciation. So around the beginning of the 19th century, the avocados ended up in the States, and they became a delicacy. There weren't many of them, they were in short supply, but a delicacy amongst the aristocrats. There were by that stage Californian farmers and growers, and the growers decided that aguacate was way too difficult to pronounce and market. So they sat down in a huge conference, and eventually they came up with the name of avocado. And here it is today. The other name that also persisted for quite a long time, especially in Florida, was the alligator pear, because of its quite gnarly and dark skin, and also it really obviously looks like an alligator. No? Well, maybe. So let's just talk about the avocado and going back a few thousand years. In fact, the human species has an interesting relationship with the avocado, because we could have, in theory, contributed to its near extinction, and we could have also contributed to the saving of it as well, because back in the Pleistocene era, when there were these megafauna, they were huge animals, so the days of the woolly mammoth, and there were huge ground sloths and armadillos. So the ground sloths could weigh a ton. They were like a small car. And during the evolution of those huge megafauna, as the animals got bigger, so the fruits that they ate got bigger, because actually the bigger the fruit, like an avocado, the more chance it had of being eaten, and then its progeny distributed around Central and South America. So these animals were getting bigger and bigger, these mammoths and these massive ground sloths that loved avocados. And then about 10,000 years ago, there was a sudden extinction of all these huge animals. And there are various theories about why they disappeared. One could have been climate change. It was just coming out of the ice age and actually starting to get warmer, a bit of global warming. And these huge animals were actually much better adapted to living through the ice age, which they had for several thousand years before that. They also coincided, their extinction coincided with a huge increase in population of us, of humans. So we could have hunted them all to extinction. Now, with the huge animals becoming extinct, these large fruits were difficult to distribute for smaller animals. They couldn't eat them because really what you need is the seed and the pulp to go right through the animal and come out the other side in a very nutritious steaming pile of dung. And if you're a smaller animal, you're just picking at the flesh and you don't actually distribute the seed. But at the same time as we made these huge megafauna extinct, we discovered the avocado. Fantastic, and we loved it. And about 10,000 years ago is when there are the first records in central Mexico of humans actually consuming avocado. They found the pips in amongst villages. We then started farming and cultivating avocados for ourselves, and probably as a result of that we saved them. The avocado is actually a berry. You might not know that, but this is a very, very large berry, and that goes along with that theory of these huge animals, these monster ground sloths eating these things. If you can imagine this as a massive berry and a huge car-sized ground sloth, then this is probably berry sized for them. So this is a large berry botanically. So since their original discovery, there have been three major domestications of the avocado. One is the Guatemalan, the second is the Mexican, and the third is the West Indian. Around the globe now, there's probably about 500 different varieties of avocado. Now, avocados are quite unique in that they fall into two types, and they imaginatively called them type A and type B. Now, type A, which is something like a Hass avocado, it has its flowers, actually when they come out in the morning of a particular day, they come out as female flowers. And they spend the day as female flowers, and then the next day in the afternoon they open up again, but this time they have switched and they're now male flowers. Now, when it comes to self-pollination or pollination of the avocado tree, that makes it quite difficult because all the flowers are the same sex at the same time. So if there are bees buzzing around the orchard and they're sitting on all the male flowers and then they go to the other flowers which are also male, it makes it very difficult to cross-pollinate. So type B are the exact opposite. They start off with male flowers opening, and then the next day they do a switch and they open up as female flowers. The avocado growers discovered that to get a fantastic yield of avocados, you need to actually grow a type A and a type B in the same orchard, or at least quite close to each other. So when the bees are buzzing around the A's and they pick up the pollen from the A flowers, they can then move to the B flowers and pollinate, and vice versa. The type A's and type B's are slightly different. The type A's tend to be like this Hass avocado, which is quite a thick skin, dark green, and then as it gets riper it gets even darker, and it's quite a tough old skin. And the type B avocados tend to be called the green skins, and the skin is much thinner and much more fragile. There's also a difference in the flesh. The type A avocados tend to be a bit more nutty and buttery and with a greater oil content, and the type B avocados tend to be a little bit more watery tasting and slightly lower fat content. So actually back in the low fat days, the type B avocados were more popular because people were told that they actually contained less oil. So some of the type A avocados are things like the Hass, the Pinkerton, the Lamb Hass, the Carmen Hass, the Gwen, the Reed, the Mexicola Grande, the Stewart, the Holiday, the Prior and the Opal. And the type B avocados include the Fuerte, very popular, Bacon, Zutano, Surprise, Joey, Winter Mexican, the Brogdon and the Wilma. So over time, even though there have been all these different varieties, the most popular avocado around the world and the most grown is the Hass avocado. And there are several reasons. One, as I explained, is that it's got a very oily, fatty, amazing taste. And it also has this really gnarly, strong, dark green to almost black skin. And this means that it transports really well. They're not fragile, these Hass avocados. So they have become an absolute favorite amongst avocado farmers. And now we come to one of the important parts of avocados, and that's its nutritional value. Obviously, they've become very, very popular around the world. And as I mentioned earlier, they are the most Instagrammed food on the planet. So why are they so nutritious, these oversized berries that we have here? Well, the first thing is that they're absolutely teeming with fat. Now, there was a time when that wouldn't have really gone down well with all the health gurus around the world. In the 80s and 90s, when we were low fat everything, the avocado industry actually took a bit of a dive. It flattened off and even declined because they had the reputation of being very fatty. So since the 2000s, we've discovered that fat, especially particular types of fat, are incredibly good for us. And avocado contains one of these very good fats, which is monounsaturated fatty acids. And its particular type of monounsaturated fatty acid is oleic acid, which is the same fat that you find in olive oil that contributes to the great health benefits of olive oil. So one of the things about oleic acid is that it rebalances the cholesterol ratios. So you may know that it's not just all about your level of cholesterol, but it's about the balance between good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. It's important to remember that cholesterol is absolutely vital for our survival. It is a precursor and a building block for all our major hormones. It's also incredibly important for cell membranes, and particularly the cell membranes of our brains. So cholesterol is really important. But there are two different types of cholesterol, and I will do a whole video on this, but in a nutshell, low density lipoproteins, which is LDL, are not so great for us, and HDL, which is the high density version, are really good for us. And sometimes when we're not healthy, we end up with too much LDL and not enough HDL. And this oleic acid is responsible for actually rebalancing our cholesterol level. So it also reduces our blood pressure, which is great because we need lowish, we certainly don't need high blood pressure. And that may come back to the effect on HDL and LDL cholesterol, because actually LDL cholesterol you can imagine as more of a symptom than it is a cause. It's often there to try and patch up trouble in the arteries, and the LDL is there, really as a plaster trying to fix things, and often the things it's trying to fix are caused by high blood pressure. The lowering of the blood pressure may also contribute to the lowering of LDL and the increase of HDL. So let's quickly talk about some of the vitamins and minerals that are in avocado. The first one is folate, and folate is vitamin B9, and it's very important constituent for the manufacture of RNA and DNA, in other words, for our cells. And it's also required to metabolize amino acids, which are required for cell division. Vitamin C, we all know about, very important, vitamin K, and several of B vitamins apart from folate as well. When it comes to minerals, there are several, But potassium is very high in potassium, and we always think of bananas as being a high potassium food, but actually avocados contain more potassium than your banana. And potassium is very important in the metabolic pumps that go on, and there needs to be good balance between sodium and potassium so you can get movement of stuff across the cells. So potassium, very important. Let's talk quickly about carotenoids. Carotenoids are an incredibly important part of our nutrition. I think there's more than 1,000 carotenoids being discovered. And in the avocado, it contains, I think, nearly about a dozen different carotenoids. Now, carotenoids are very powerful antioxidants, but the avocado is particularly good because carotenoids get absorbed more easily if they're eaten with particular fats. And the avocado actually has the correct fats to help carotenoid absorption. So not only will the fat in the avocado help the absorption of the carotenoids in avocado, but if you mix it with other foods that have carotenoids, then those will get absorbed very well as well. And carotenoids tend to be in foods that are yellow and orange and red. So things like tomatoes and carrots and aubergines and fruits and veg like that. So adding an avocado to a great tomato salad or with carrots helps the carotenoids in those foods be absorbed. So there are two carotenoids that are incredibly important for eye health, and that is lutein and zeaxanthin. And these carotenoids actually accumulate in your retina, and particularly around the macula, which is the really central bit right at the back of your retina in your eye. And they have a double function. Firstly, they are antioxidants like many other carotenoids, but they also, when they accumulate there, they also filter out blue light, and blue light is toxic to your retina. So by filtering out blue light, which is incredibly important in our modern day lifestyle where we expose our eyes to blue light all the time with all our devices. So both of these carotenoids are very, very important for great eye health. And avocados will be recommended by your optician or any of your eye specialists because they do contain zeaxanthin and lutein. But go and have a look it up if you can see. Yeah, but don't spend too long on your device because there's too much blue light. Unless you've had lots of avocado, then you've got lutein and zeaxanthin that actually filters blue light, and then you'll be fine. And then you can look it up, and then it'll be cool. So you can't really talk about avocado without mentioning fiber. Avocado has lots of fiber. It has soluble and insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber binds to water, and it really helps in your digestive efficiency and certainly in effective bowel movements. Soluble fiber is fantastic for several things. One is that it slows down the absorption of sugar into the blood. So when you eat this, if you eat avocados with something sweet, both the oil and the soluble fiber actually slow down the movement of glucose into your blood, so you don't get a huge blood spike. The other thing about fiber is that your microbiota love it. The microbes in your gut, which are the most important thing in nutrition and the most important thing for your health, they use it as nutrition, the soluble and insoluble fiber, and that makes you healthy because your good bacteria, which is your commensal bacteria, need nutrition. And if you keep giving them refined carbs, then they don't get any nutrition, and then they die off, and then the bad bacteria end up swamping them, and we get things like leaky gut, Crohn's disease, all sorts of other gut inflammation problems. So fiber, super important. Okay, I want to briefly talk about the where these vitamins and minerals and carotenoids and all these other phytochemicals are in the avocado, and I will talk about it a little bit later also in the preparation. So in the avocado you've got the the pip in the middle, and you've got this sort of yellowy, whitey yellow, which is most of your monounsaturated fats. This is all the delicious buttery taste of avocado. And then you can see there's a very dark green rim just before the skin. So just under the skin and between the skin and the fat is this dark green layer. And I'll do a close-up in a minute. But this is where all the good stuff exists. So all the carotenoids, all the vitamins, the minerals, and it's really in this layer. So when you're preparing avocado and you're putting it on your salads or whatever, it's very important to get this dark green layer and not just scoop out the buttery white bits. But we'll go through that in the preparation in a few seconds. If you're anything like me, and I think a few of you possibly are, it's often quite disappointing when some science or research or evidence comes up that doesn't support something that you either believe or like, especially when it comes to food. So the evidence, I'm a keen meat eater. I don't eat a huge amount of meat, but I do like meat. And when all the evidence comes out that meat is pretty much the worst thing on the planet for CO2 emissions, it's a little bit disappointing. On the other hand, when they come out with research that says that a glass of red wine is really good for you because it contains some fantastic polyphenols, you go, excellent. Yes, I'll go with that research. So we're constantly trying to find evidence for the things we like. Now, when it comes to avocado and its green footprint, it's not good news. It really isn't. And there are several reasons. Avocados take a lot of resources to actually produce. The first one I want to talk about is water. These are very, very thirsty plants. The avocado tree is a very, very thirsty plant. It actually takes about 350 litres of water to produce one of these. So the avocado water footprint is shocking. And because they actually thrive in very hot and arid areas where water is actually at a premium, it's not great. So because of the massive demand and also the high prices of avocado, they've become an amazing cash crop for people in the areas that can grow them. In places like Chile, in Petorca, it's become a real problem because the plantations grow at a huge rate, and actually the farmers can buy water rights off the government, and basically they move all the water from the rivers and streams that would have gone and actually supplied many of the villages downstream, and basically the avocado plantations actually take all the water. And in places where there isn't much rainfall, it is a serious problem. So in Petorca in particular, it has become a well-known issue where villagers downstream of the avocado plantations are basically have no water and they have to get it tankered in, and often the quality of the water isn't great, and it's very expensive. There's a problem particularly in Mexico with deforestation, because a small holding of avocado plants can actually produce up to $500,000 a year. These are green gold for these Mexican farmers. And they've not only changed the crops that they used to produce on their farms to avocados, but they've also started encroaching on indigenous forest and cutting it down. So there's a huge deforestation problem. The other problem also concerns water, because the indigenous forest actually uses much, much less water than the avocado plantations. So not only is the indigenous forest not there to regenerate water and create clouds and create rain, also the water gets rerouted to the avocado plantations and doesn't take its natural route down to the populations in Mexico. There's another amazing problem in Mexico with what probably used to be the drug cartels have now discovered that avocados are so profitable that these cartels, very dangerous cartels, have started taking their cut. So a lot of the Mexican farmers end up having to pay protection money and commissions to these very dangerous armed cartels. And there was a case even in New Zealand where an avocado farmer had his whole crop stolen on one night. I mean, it's just incredible. These are very, very valuable, and we have to really think about it when we start eating a lot of avocados. We've talked about water, we've talked about deforestation in Mexico. The other thing about avocados is they take a lot of work and a lot of resources to get to the consumer. So on the plantation, they're generally monocultures, which means there's a lot of agrochemical use, which is not only expensive but also not brilliant for the soil. They have to be looked after from sunburn. Avocados get badly sunburnt and then turn black. There's obviously a lot of water wherever they're being produced. And the other problem is that people want ready-to-eat avocados. So I'm sure you've had the experience when you've gone into a shop and you really feel like eating an avocado and they're all like green bullets. Well, consumers aren't very tolerant of things like that. So the farmers and the distributors have realized that people want ready-to-eat avocados, and that is expensive because the avocados are actually picked off the tree unripe, so like the very hard green avocados that you sometimes come across in the shop. They then get transported to the region where they are going to be consumed, and the transport, they have to be in temperature controlled environments, and they're normally flown, especially if they're coming from South America or Mexico and across to Europe. They're flown in temperature controlled environments, and when they get to the region that they're going to be distributed, they then go into ripening warehouses. Now in the ripening warehouse, the temperature is raised and they are also exposed to ethylene, which makes them ripen much quicker. So all of this is very costly. So there's also the cost of packaging, because they can be easily bruised. They are then put in packaging that is for their protection. Often that is plastic, sometimes it's straw. In fact, I have one here. But you know, they've attempted to put straw in here to actually protect the avocado, but look at this big plastic guy here. So between the transport, the ripening, and the packaging, they have a very high carbon footprint, these avocados, which is slightly disappointing, isn't it? Afternoon, but it will take a couple of days instead of a week. Now there's a couple of theories about whether you to choose whether an avocado is ripe. One of them is to pick off the end stem here, which I'm going to do with this one, and if it comes off easily, it's ripe. If it doesn't, then it's not ripe. Do not do this, please, because if it's ripe, it's fine. You put it in your bag, it's ripe, and then you eat it the same day. If you pick this off and it's not ripe, you then tend to put it back on the shelf. Now what's happened is you've broken a seal, which the avocado has an amazing seal with all this skin here, but it also has a seal in the stem here, and if you pull this off, now broken the seal so oxygen can get in there, and the end of the avocado will go brown and mushy for the next person who picks it up. Checking for ripeness is fairly straightforward, especially with Hass avocados. This one is not ripe and you can see it's quite green. As it gets more ripe, it becomes much darker, so it gets a darker skin. Eventually it will go black, pretty much black, and it'll go mushy, and then you have to throw it away. We've just talked about the environmental impact and the cost of actually producing an avocado, not only in carbon footprint but in water. Every time you throw one of these away, you're basically throwing away 300 or 350 litres of virtual water from places where water is very, very, very scarce. You've also added a whole stack of carbon footprint for this avocado. So if you're going to have an avocado, make sure it doesn't go off and eat it just to make it worth it. If you put it in the bin, it is such a waste. Just talking about opening up avocados, the easiest way is basically to cut horizontally around the avocado. You take that out. In one side the pip will stay in, you put your knife in, you twist it 90 degrees, you pull it out. Okay, now at this point, if you're going to make guacamole or squash it to put on your toast, you can actually scoop it out with a spoon. But as I mentioned earlier, all the nutritious part is in this dark green here. So actually, even if you're going to squash it, the best way is to cut the avocado again in a quarter, take the end here, and between your thumb and your knife, just peel it back like that, and there you have it. And actually, once you've done that, you can really see the difference between the inside flesh and the dark green, and this dark green is where all the nutrients are. Here's a little hint, if no one's ever told you, with cutting avocados. If you have a knife, if you go in the thick part of the blade, often the avocado will stick to the knife. So the best way to do it is really take it right at the end and cut it really at the thinnest part of the knife, and then it doesn't stick to the knife. I don't know where I saw that, but it actually works every time. And there you have a beautiful avocado ready to eat. So there we have it. That is the avocado, nutritional nugget on the avocado. It's a great fruit, great large berry, but it does have its cost. So it's important that we do not waste them. So make sure you get them unripe. Make sure they're definitely not squidgy when you take them off the shelf. Just be a little bit patient. So if you enjoyed that, there's going to be lots of nutrition nuggets coming up over the next weeks and months. To get notified of new ones coming up, please hit the notification bell. Please subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Always helps. And if you've got any comments or thoughts or ideas, please stick them in the comments below. I always read the comments, and nearly always there's some amazing information that arrives in the comments section. So lovely to see you. Take it easy, and we'll see you in the next one.